Welcome to Own It, the podcast where we talk to real estate thought leaders about embracing your strengths, taking your career to new heights, and owning your future. I'm Hillary Saunders, Chief Broker Officer and co-founder at Side, along with my Design Challenge co-host, Spencer Crow.
Well, you want to hit some more insecurities for me, Hillary? Thank you so much.
No, I'm going to actually help you today. This is my gift to you.
Yeah,
today is all about staging, the uses, needs for staging, the differences it can make, and regards to days on market, how you're presenting, how you get top dollar if you do staging, assuming you do that. And so our guest today is one of my favorite staging gurus, Ashley Provost. Welcome to Own It, Ashley.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And I just adore you and have so much admiration for what you've done as well. So it's great to talk with you.
Oh, that's extremely kind. Well, the show is not about me. The show is about you. So how did you get into the staging business to start with? Because I know a lot of people think that it seems very fun and glamorous and beautiful, but what brought you into the industry?
Yeah, it is fun and glamorous and beautiful. That is a small percentage of what we do, like many jobs. I went to Berkeley and studied literature, which surprisingly does have a few applications in, analytical skills and what I do. But after Cal, I went to Europe for a couple of years, absolutely fell in love with design while I was over there. Partially probably because I didn't speak the language. I wasn't watching TV as much. I was probably, a little more lonely, didn't know as many people. And I just threw myself into design magazines and design books and walking the streets and, looking at buildings. And by the time I came back after 2.5 years, I was, resolved that I wanted to do something in the design space. Came back home to the Bay Area and went to work for Pottery Barn while I just figured it out. While I was there, ran into a longtime, family friend who had gotten into staging. And I remember vividly the words coming out of my mouth, "What's staging?" Which is so fun to think about. And thankfully, she needed an assistant. And I went to work with her for 4 years. And she saw an amazing business. And then I went on my own in 2010.
That's amazing. How did you parlay working for someone? What was the bug that inspired you to actually go on your own and create your own company?
There's all different types of staging businesses, right? And a lot of them are, sort of more boutique, which is fabulous. And I was 25 years old or something and really had to make decisions based on finances for me. And so a lot of it was just really financially motivated. I think that we wanted different types of things after, a little while. It was just time, but I still call her for advice all the time.
25. That's amazing for a couple of reasons. But you were running a business at 25.
Yeah, I might have been a few years older than that, but in there somewhere.
Yeah. So how has your business sense changed?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have some now.
Okay.
I've acquired a little bit of knowledge. I'm very, very fortunate that I have been able to surround myself with people who know about business, not just staging business, but just businesses. And that's a piece of advice I would certainly give to anyone starting off, which is don't just talk to other people in your industry, talk to people outside of your industry. Something that's interesting about staging is it's a very relatively new industry. So there's not a lot of standards for how we do things. We're really all still making it up as we go along. Mm-hmm. So it's this sort of, I'm learning how to run a business. Well, also everyone is figuring out what this industry is and how we do things. So it truly has been, making it up as we go along every day. But then I was able to fall in love with the creativity of that in the same way that you can love the creativity of putting together a room. It's really been, building in the truest sense, building something.
Yeah, I have friends who are stagers, and yes, Hillary, I do have friends. And one of the things which where they talk about, and I saw this in your bio, I think, is then you had storage. You got a warehouse. And that is a huge commitment. That's a lot of, you're coming out with a lot of money. And then you also have to buy, now you got to fill it with stuff.
Yeah, I'm now in the warehouse, actually, and in one of our little conference rooms. One of the things that's been interesting about this industry is the metaphor for me is The guy with the different stacks of plates, and they all kind of have to be the same height. And they're all spinning. So when you want to grow, which you're kind of always growing, not just buying more inventory. It's more inventory, more space, more people, more trucks, all of the above. And they have to grow at the same time in succession. You can't have a lot of one and not a lot of the other. So that's been an interesting journey.
For people who maybe aren't as entrenched in staging in general, will you give us an overview of what staging is in your opinion and what levels there are to staging a property?
Absolutely. Yeah. Gosh, it's funny. It's been a little while since I've been asked that because staging has just become such a thing here. Everyone stages. So I love kind of getting back to basics with this question. So staging essentially is changing the way the house looks for the purpose of sale. And there's a lot of debate, I think, in our industry in terms of what that means. I would say that's sort of the broadest definition. It can encompass, for us, painting. It can encompass landscaping. It can encompass all of these things. But what it's most commonly referred to is swapping out furniture or bringing in furniture if it's a vacant house and accessories and decor to set the house up in such a way that it's being merchandised like a property. So a good metaphor would be, a window at, Nordstrom's or something, the way that it's merchandised to sell that product. The product can be there either way, but the way that it's on the mannequin, what it's with, what the mannequin is doing, what the mannequin is sitting on, what's behind the mannequin sells the product. And so the house is there no matter what, the features are there, but the furniture that we bring in, the decor, where we place them, how we showcase the way that a room is used, all of those things can camouflage flaws. They can highlight features. That's usually our goal, is to get you to not look at the stuff, to get you to look at the house and enhance it. And so that generally is what staging means. But sometimes in some areas and some types of companies, it can be more vignette. Sometimes people aren't bringing in any furniture and they're just bringing in a few accessories. In our area, we tend to really do full staging. But it can mean different things. But usually it's surrounding home decor and furniture, and sometimes can expand to renovations that make sense, there's a strong ROI there.
It's almost like you're a trusted advisor to the agent, right? You're part of their brain trust when they come in to talk about listing a home and getting the highest value in the shortest amount of time for that seller. It's like, here is my design expert. Let the information come from the horse's mouth, so to speak, in that, like you said, for every dollar you invest, you get 4 back. And that's amazing that people would consider leaving that opportunity on the table. What do you see, or in your opinion, what do you see as far as like the benefits to length on the market with a house that is staged versus not staged? Like, are buyers imaginative, or do they lack that?
I don't find buyers to be especially imaginative. And most of my information I get is coming from my buyers' agents, right? Because I'm generally not touring the homes with the buyers. But we do, see days on market to be much, much lower when it's staged. I don't have a statistic in front of me, and that's because the statistics change so fast that every time I have one, it's like there's a new one. We really have seen incredible increases over time. But I think that a good way to illustrate it is to think about, the younger generations. Think about who's buying right now, and we're seeing. I think I read somewhere that it's the millennials right now, right? It's the largest amount of millennials buying homes, and so within that age group, and you think about how they have grown up and what they have seen, it's really an Instagram generation. They want that very quick, instant gratification. They want things to look the way that they are seeing it on Instagram or on Pinterest or whatever it is. They don't have a lot of time. It's usually, two people working in the household, and work isn't what it used to be, right? We're all available on our cell phones all day long. They're busy. They are not coming in wanting big projects. They're not coming in expecting to renovate a house most of the time. They want it to look the way the Instagram house looked, and then they're willing to spend more for it. They're willing to fight for it. So part of what we do on that notion of kind of fighting for it is when they come in, we want to immediately establish an emotional connection, and we want them to start visualizing what they would do, where they would put things, so that then they are attached. They don't want anyone else to have that house because they've already decided where their sofa's going or where grandma's hutch is going or whatever it is. So we want them to have that sort of what we call negative space, so that they're immediately drawn to planning and mapping out what they're going to do. And then they're willing to fight for it. And we, of course, we know that fighting means multiple offers. So that's what we're trying. We want a frenzy. Fighting's maybe a rough word. We want a little bit of a frenzy, though.
What is your style, and how do you change up what you're doing?
Yes. So we talk about this in my office with my design team all the time. One of the things that we always struggle with is, do we want people to walk in and say, this is an Ashley Provost Design home, right? And while I don't mind that, my goal is not for that to happen. My goal is for the buyers to walk into the house, focus on the architectural features, assuming that this is not a fixer-upper. You know, when it's a fixer-upper, sometimes it's like, look at the staging, don't look at the countertops. But assuming that it's a lovely, updated home, we want them focused on views, floors, beams in the ceiling, whatever it may be, layout. I really don't want them looking at my throw pillow. I want them to say, this is a beautiful room, but the focus should not be on me. That said, we certainly switch up the style between architectural styles. So we will do, of course, a mid-century modern, which I happen to have grown up in a mid-century modern home. We'll do a mid-century modern completely differently than we will do a traditional home. Like my home I live in is much more traditional and classic. Most of what we do is what we internally call APD signature, which is a blend of both. We're going to have some modern elements. We're going to have some classic elements. We're going to have a little bit of traditional. We're going to have some vintage. That's one thing that kind of sets us apart from a lot of stagers, is that we have a lot of collected vintage items over many years. And that mix is done, and I should say, almost exclusively light and bright, because we know statistically those are the top two things that buyers want. And all of that is done very intentionally and strategically to have it feel not just warm and inviting, but also mass appeal. Have it feel like anyone's taste will apply in this house as much as possible, but have it still feel special and layered. And that's kind of tricky, right? Everybody would like it, but it's special for you. So it's a little bit of that. And so that's why we've incorporated this blend of all of those things as much as possible in our style. But like I said, if it's a mid-century modern house, I'm not bringing in the traditional really at all. If it's a very traditional house, probably not bringing in much modern. But most of what we do is right in the middle.
How do you keep up with change in styles and what's in, so to speak, especially keeping inventory available? How do you deal with that quandary?
I would say that comes naturally to me and is a lifelong obsession. That is not something that is a task for me. That is the love. I love reading the design magazines. I love scrolling Instagram. I love following my favorite designers. I love going through, to this day. I mean, I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and it's funny you said Ralph Lauren. I walked through the Ralph Lauren store, and my boyfriend Dean said, I think this is the happiest you've been the whole weekend walking through a retail store. But I love the idea of some of these brands and the vision that they bring. So all of that is just the best part of my job. In terms of keeping the inventory, that we have decided to take an approach almost like a museum curator. Actually, one of my best friends is a museum curator. And so I talk to her sometimes about this, about choosing certain pieces, how we decide when to phase them out, how we decide when to bring them in. And it's really the subject of a lot of discussion. For instance, this chair is sitting here in the warehouse because we phased it out of staging. So it's not one of the pieces that we're using anymore. We decided nail heads are kind of on their way out. But so it's in our little conversation room for now. But we're constantly changing, constantly buying. Sometimes it takes buying to realize what we want to get rid of. As the new things come in, and we get a delivery every single day, at least one every day, 365. So as the new things are coming in, we sort of start to look at the old things and go, no. And it's a constant adding and then trimming, adding and then trimming. And there are pieces we've had for 10 years. But yeah, it's you have to really be obsessed with that, I think. It can't just be a line item on your business plan. Can't is a strong word. I do know some stagers who just have a certain number of years and there's a formula. And after a certain number of years, it's out, or uses. I suppose you could do that. I appreciate and love some of the pieces that have patina and that are older and that are classics. I like the blend.
Yeah. So I got one thing you mentioned. I think it's in your business plan, and I was really struck by your mission statement, which is on your website. And that, to me, it's like two things. That was one of the most clearly articulated mission statements I've ever read, because it was so on target with your business, right?
Wow.
Because a lot of times you get like, oh, to make the best experience possible, you're like, no, here's what we're doing. You have 5 items on there. I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize. But like, design is like first and foremost. And how did you come up with that?
Well, I think what sticks out to me from the mission statement is that we always want to remember the end goal of what we're doing. I think it's very easy in staging to get caught up in what my favorite color pillow is, right? And that's not what I'm doing here. This isn't an exercise in what I think is pretty. What I'm doing is I am helping someone get the most value out of their home. They don't have to stage, by the way. You can sell your home, you just drop the price. What I'm doing is providing an opportunity for them to make the most out of their home, to sell it as fast as possible. And a lot of the time what we get is it allows a family to do something important. So whether that's moving up to their dream home, whether that is grandma and grandpa are downsizing and the amount they get out of their house allows them to live more comfortably the rest of their lives. I've had a few where sadly they've passed away, and then that money's putting grandkids through college. It's always something really big. And so we talk around here a lot about how, yeah, okay, it's not heart surgery, it's sofas and pillows. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve can be really monumental in someone's life and can make a very big difference. You know, an extra $50,000 is impactful in many people's lives. So even
that's so true. I mean, it's, you know, majority of the people across the country, this is their biggest investment. This is the biggest purchase they make, the biggest sale they ever involved in. And having an expert to say, if you do these additional things and we invest up front, the return can, like you said, be monumental. I mean, that $50,000 can pay for, you know, a year of school, could buy a new car, can do a whole lot of things. In Spencer's case, it can buy a lot of new hats
that I can hang. For those of you who are watching on video, you will notice that I have a hat covering my thermostat. That's a little staging tip. I came up with that on my own, but I'm sure Ashley can help me.
You're happening right now.
There you go. And I wear hats. You just said something. And by the way, luckily our producer just dropped in the chat for us in terms of the 5 parts of your mission statement. But there are 2 that I love, which is return on investment, both of what we were just talking about, right? So this isn't just to make your home look pretty. Like, this is a business transaction. And I think that speaks both to the agent and to the client. And the other one is dreams and goals. And that's the one that really that struck me. Because, hey, seller, and hey, and it also reminds the agent, like, this is what this is about. Like, there's a goal to this. So how often do you revisit this?
Oh gosh. The first thing I say when I walk into somebody's store, which is, you know, lately a little bit less, but it used to be 8 or 9 times a day I would do previews. Now I'm about 4 a day. But the minute I walk, just because I have help now, amazing help. The first thing when I walk through the door, that's what we talk about. You know, we say this is about getting the most for your house, and so therefore I'm going to give you all of my recommendations based on what I think a buyer will respond to, and then from there we put it through the second. Like, that's filter number 1, right? Mm-hmm. Filter number 2 is, what are you willing to do? And so that's kind of how we land. And we have a really specific process for that I think is really helpful for people. Personally, a lot of stagers do the walk and talk. I've chosen not to do that. I'll take pictures, I'll get a sense of it, I'll go back to my office, sit down at a desk, work on a plan, and email it to them so that then they have a chance to digest it, think about it, talk to their significant other, talk to their family. I find that leads to a happier client. The walk and talk, once I say, I think you should do this, and they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you think I should do that. My dad built that. Now we're either in an argument or I just stop talking. And so I find that it's better and more respectful of their space and the stress that they're going through, and just inevitably, right? It's stressful, to give it to them in their own time, allow them to read it. And it gives me time to really think it through, because the way I see a house when I walk it is completely, because everyone's smiling and nice and the dog is so cute. When I go home and I look at the pictures, I see it the way a buyer will. So it's just a little more, I think, targeted.
That's a really good takeaway, is that there's an emotional component that could be a filter over what you're trying to accomplish, which is look at it through the lens of a buyer, right? Yeah. You mentioned something, that's how your competition does things, walk and talk. How do you differentiate yourself from your quote unquote competition or other people in the same space in your area?
Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying, I rarely use the word competition, not to be all, woo-woo about it, but just because specifically in our industry, it's such a newer industry overall. I mean, the whole industry as a whole is 25 years old, so maybe 30. And so we really lean on each other to learn about industry standards and establish industry standards and figure out what's working, what's not working, what do our realtors need from us. So it really is a bit of a sisterhood. I actually, every 6 months, I've started doing a stager meetup with 50 or 60 stagers in the area, getting them all together so that we can talk about these things. It's been wildly successful and wonderful for us to have people to lean on. That said, not every stager, a lot of them are smaller operations. So we're a big volume operation. I think that there's pros and cons to both. I think they bring things to the table that, of course, I'm unable to bring at my size. We're staging 3 or 4 homes a day. So sometimes, up to 20 homes. And then, of course, if we're staging that many, we're destaging that many, and they're all coming back. So the number of stops and the number of people that we have 30 people on our team and 7 trucks, and we do 600 to 800 homes a year. So we're really at a high volume model. Because of that, I think there's some things that we can really bring to the table, right? We have a pretty extensive inventory. I'm sitting in my 13,000 square foot warehouse that probably only has about 10% of what I actually own in it right now, and still is full. Plus we have 80 homes that are staged right now. So we have a lot to work with. We have the ability to, if we don't have what we need, we buy it. We have to be organized. We have no choice but to be organized, reliable, and consistent with that amount of work. So I think that our clients find that we tend to be all of those things, because we're not renting furniture if something isn't quite right, and because all my guys work with me full time and gals, we just run back if something's not right. We just run back to the warehouse. And we have the trucks, we have the staff, we have the infrastructure. So it enables us to be extremely reliable and consistent. I would say that's what sets us apart the most. The other thing, just briefly, we hear time and time again, process, and just, I think also just our team members, very focused on making clients feel comfortable. And I think we really shine in an occupied space. And we have a designer on staff also who helps people with if there's renovations that need to be done. We are able to really help people feel good about it. We're not going to come in and say, that's terrible, that needs to go. People, I think the diplomacy maybe is our strong suit as well.
Yeah, we talk to agents a lot about them growing their teams, and there's always these steps that they take, like, oh, I'm going to hire my first assistant. Like, when do you do this? And oh, that was a bad hire, and that set me back. So now I know something more. So yeah. Two parts. But the first one is, you obviously made a decision of like, I'm going to be big. And so I don't know if it started that way, like, but you decided I'm going to be the biggest stager in the area or whatever it is that you're. I mean, that's amazing what you're saying. And how did you grow your team, and how did you decide to hire those people?
Well, what's funny, the reason I laughed is I did not decide that. I remember vividly standing with probably, I would say, when you say competition, my biggest competitor is a very good friend of mine, and shout out to Tanya. And I was standing in her warehouse and I said, God, I never want to be as big as you. And, now we're really on par. We're similar sizes. And it just sort of happened. And I'm so glad it did. The way that it happened for me was I'm a people pleaser at heart. I did not want to say no to anybody. And my clients kept saying, you're not available fast enough. You need more. You need more people. You need more inventory. We need you sooner. And we were saying no. They needed us within 2 weeks, and we were booked out at times like 4 or 6 weeks, and they couldn't wait. Hillary's nodding her head. It probably happened to Hillary once.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. And so I didn't like saying no to people that I really love working with. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer that it's about the relationships. I get so much job satisfaction out of working with amazing realtors who are my friends, who are incredible. And I hated saying no, and I hated them not having what they needed and who they needed. So I hired and I bought a building, and I, bought trucks. So that's how that happened. And, hiring was very scary. I will tell you the biggest thing I learned was, and really the biggest learning moment, and I think I'll always go back to this. We got to a point where we were staging 2 houses a day. I had 2 staging teams and me. And 2 staging teams, 1 logistics moving team, and me doing previews. And we did great. I mean, I think that was the year I bought the house in Tahoe. That was like the best year ever. I made money. It was fabulous. And I go, wow, let's just double it. Right? Well, it doesn't work like that. So 4 staging teams, 2 moving teams, and me. No. So we have 4 staging teams, but now we have 30 people. And it took all of that infrastructure. When you grow, I mean, you need so much more support staff. But also I realized managing people, you just can't manage that many people. The middle management was the biggest lesson for me. And there was a lot of heartbreak for a couple of years, and still is. I ran into a former team member the other day, and we were talking about, old times. And I was thinking about what a terrible manager I was for a couple of years because I was spread so thin. I wasn't giving people the support that they needed. And so, but I also look back and I think I had to go through it to learn it. I don't know that anyone could have really taught me that. And I wouldn't advise someone to not hire. I would say, because it's never perfect. You just have to make your way through. So I had to just kind of keep hiring people, figure out where the need was. The thing that I wish I would do over again would be just having more open lines of communication as I was growing, so that when something wasn't quite right, I knew about it faster and I could adjust and I could bob and weave. But I wouldn't say, I think a lot of people don't hire, or they don't grow because they're worried they're not ready yet. I've never bought anything. I've never hired anyone that I regretted. I've always been glad. I've always said I needed that extra pair of hands. I needed those extra sofas. I needed that extra space. And it made my life easier, and it solved a lot of problems. Sometimes it brings up more problems, so you just have to stay attentive and aware so you catch them. There's not a day goes by, like I was saying, not a day goes by that we don't get a delivery. Not a day goes by that I don't change a rule of some kind, change how we store things, change how we pack things, change a safety rule, constantly improving. And that's because I think I'm a little more connected now. I'm having regular meetings with team members always, constantly, every day, every week, to learn what's not working, and just little tweaks, tweak.
That's awesome. And being agile and being receptive to feedback and being willing to try new things. I think that's incredibly admirable too. What advice do you have for realtors when they're working or wanting to work with stagers? Are there specific do's, don'ts, tips that help, like that can foster a better relationship or an end result?
Yeah, great question. I have a lot of things to say. So one is know that staging is phenomenally logistical. It seems like we're just showing up, making it pretty. There's a ton that goes into it. If there's a stager that will allow you to, do a warehouse tour, we started doing warehouse tours once a year to get a sense so you can appreciate it, so you can also communicate to your clients. That awareness, I think, is really important. Another is if you have opinions on how you would like things to look, there's a lot of debate in the staging community about this, because stagers mostly feel that our job is to make the decisions about how a house should look, right? But I think a lot of realtors see it as part of their brand. So if you have opinions on that, my suggestion on how to communicate that would be, in the beginning, before you get to a house, talk about your brand overall. Not necessarily, I want a chair here, I want a sofa there. All those, certain stagers, that's welcome. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But talk about, my brand, I really want everything to look like this or look like that, or, show them some of your brochures maybe and say like, does anyone use brochures anymore? You know what I'm saying? But so they can kind of get a sense. And also the bigger thing, more than how the house looks, is how you want to communicate. How do you want to communicate with your clients? How do you want us to communicate with your clients? Some of my agents don't want me to ever talk to their client. They want to be the concierge. They want that concierge experience. They want it all to flow through them. Some of my agents don't want me to talk to their client the whole time, don't want me to call them at all. And usually it's in the middle. But I think establishing that up front, not making assumptions, we're all busy. But I promise you, knowing how your stager works is important, because it's going to backfire if you don't have a plan on how you're going to work together. On staging day, your client's going to freak out and you're going to be the one that gets all the phone calls. So having all that kind of laid out, and most stagers have a way they work regularly, but are willing to be flexible if the agent wants it different. Like all of our agents like to work a little differently. So we can be flexible. That's probably my biggest advice. And just do your homework. Check out the stager, take a look. Don't just compare prices. Look at what it looks like. Pay attention to who your agents in your office are using, who they say is kind to homeowners and professional. And I will also say that our industry as a whole has really, I feel, grown leaps and bounds in that. I remember when I first started, I would sometimes hear stories about, people not necessarily taking it seriously as a profession. And I really never hear that anymore. Everyone is showing up when they say they're going to. They're being extremely professional. The houses look insane. They're so good. The expectations have shifted too. I mean, the staging used to be a little tray with a little, teacup or something in a newspaper, remember? And
I do. I remember very vividly.
It's got to look like a catalog. And the prices have grown, of course, with that. But also people are making more money because of it. The ROI is there. So it's been an amazing thing to witness over the last, almost 20 years.
You've got such a heavy lift because when as an agent, you're mainly just dealing with the psychology of your client. And so you have to deal with the psychology of the client and the psychology of the agent.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes the whole family,
And ultimately the buyer too. I think it's one thing that before we wrap up, I mean, we could talk about staging all day, but I really think it's really cool and impressive that you get this experience of being at the forefront of a new industry. That doesn't happen often. And I just wanted to get your take before we ask you where everyone can find you, is what is that personal emotional journey for you as far as like experiencing a new industry growing up?
Lorraine, you're going to make me cry. It's no one's ever asked me that before. And it does make me emotional to think about. It is, while I recognize that sometimes, there's always this push-pull of like, it's my career, it's what I do every day. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, am I getting emotional over something as silly as like, dining tables? But, I think what I'm extremely proud of is obviously being an employer. And a lot of the team members that I have and a lot of staging companies have are often, stay-at-home moms that want to get back out there. And this is something that's flexible for them, gives them a flexible schedule that works well. Or in the case of my team, a lot of them are young people where this is their first real job. And we get the opportunity to teach them how to behave in a professional workplace before they move on to their next thing. They're probably not usually going to stay here till they're, retired. And so that's a really satisfying thing. And then I think a lot of staging companies, the owners of staging companies also are people that, were looking for something where they could be creative, they could be entrepreneurial. And there aren't a lot of barriers to entry. It's really, if you're good at your job, you're going to be successful. If you love it, you're going to be successful. If you have a great attitude, you're going to be successful. You know, you don't have to like go to medical school for it. It's something you can kind of get in and get your hands dirty. And so I'm really proud to be part of it, that industry as a whole. And it is extremely satisfying to, help, be one of many, many, many people helping to kind of shape what are our standards, what works for us, what works for our clients, what's sustainable in the long run. It's very creative. Like, I don't physically stage houses very much anymore. And people sometimes ask if I miss it. And I say no, because I get to be so creative with the business. And I do the design plans, but I get to also be very creative in how we shape what we do. And it is emotional now that you mention it. It is. Wonderful.
Well, congratulations on you have so many years left in the career that you want to have. And I think it's very impressive too, just to point out that you are a rather large employer. I mean, many small businesses have a few employees, but you've got a team of 30, and that's quite
hiring.
And hiring. Great. Let's do a plug. So your website, ashleyprovostdesign.com.
Yes.
Are you on the Insta and
on
the other?
Insta. Everything is Ashley Provost Design. Instagram is Ashley Provost Design. Facebook is Ashley Provost Design. One last little tidbit that I will say, as long as we're giving advice to entrepreneurs, be easy to find. I named my company after myself because it was easy to find me. Everyone was calling me Ashley anyway, so they wouldn't remember my company name. But so I'm super easy to find, and we would love to hear from you. We're in the Bay Area, and then I know you have people all over. So if somebody needs a stager in another area, I'm connected on a lot of Facebook groups and things, and a lot of times I know good stagers in other areas as well.
I love it. Well, thank you again for your time, and I just applaud your success. Congratulations!
Right back at you, by the way. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to do this. Like you said, I could talk about it all day. It's my favorite topic. So thank you for having me.
I love it. Well, thanks again for joining us on Own It, and we will see you back here next week with another episode.